Well, Campbell and Liza, we are so excited to have video 2, and we're going to talk today about curriculum and everything else. So, can you tell us a little bit about what help did you get from the school district?
Well, when we first started homeschooling, we made an agreement with them that they would provide Braille materials and first they did say they would provide some assistive technology and O&M and Braille lessons. But the reason we started homeschooling is because they didn't have any staff in place to do that. So them saying that they were going to do it and then actually doing it, the funding in our state was frozen for the outreach program. It was a whole, like the perfect storm and a lot of it wasn't their fault. And then some of it, they probably could have hired someone if they were posting it as a part-time job. And I think that was the problem. We live in a very rural area. No one's going to move out here to the Appalachian Mountains for part-time pay and no insurance and that kind of stuff. So I think that was probably the issue. But I didn't know that at the time, when we were doing it. So anyway, so they did provide Braille books. So every year I would send them a list of what subjects she was going to take and which ones we needed in Braille. And then they would go through the state resource center and get those. And then we would pick them up and use them for the year and then bring them back. And then for O&M and Braille, like I said, we didn't really have any of that from 5th grade to 8th grade.
Yes.
We had, sporadic with her previous TVI. She did the summer programs that Campbell went to. So she would do some here and there. But that's it at this school for the blind. And so then in 8th grade, we had our IEP meeting and I brought all the things that you were supposed to be able to do to get a guide dog. I brought the checklist and Campbell couldn't do very many of those. And that seemed to be what hit home. And they were like, oh, well, she can't even qualify for a tool that she may need in the future. So then they reached out to some surrounding states programs, and we got an O&M instructor in North Carolina, we're on the edge of Tennessee. So it's about an hour from here. So it sounds further than it is. So it really wasn't that bad. We contracted with him for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And went to Asheville to do those lessons, which was great because we don't even have sidewalks here. So there was really nowhere for her to practice O&M a lot. So it worked out really well.
Yeah. And instead of doing 1 hour 4 times a month, we opted to do 2 hours twice a month. So that we could save some, driving, and it worked really well. I would be absolutely exhausted at the end of the 2 hours for the first few months, but my stamina definitely grew. And so by the end of it, we had some extra O&M hours during my senior year that we had to use. And so we just planned like an O&M weekend where I would do maybe 4 to 6 hours of O&M a day. So I definitely increased my stamina, and I really liked working with him. He was a great teacher.
Yeah, and then they funded that. I had to fund the transportation getting there and back, and then they funded the actual contract with him. And then as far as Braille, she was already fluent in Braille, so we didn't really have any more Braille lessons after 5th grade, right? And then we did have a TVI come from the state school for the blind to help. I think she came, was it once or twice a month?
30 minutes a month. So
yeah, something like that at first. And then the other one, another lady got a job there and came like once every 2 weeks or something. We meet her at the library. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And so and we did a lot of getting her ready for the ACT, talking about accommodations, that kind of stuff, more than like a Braille lesson. And then she worked with another assistive technology instructor that was free, that her O&M instructor had arranged through IFB Solutions.
Right. And I don't think they do that anymore.
Yeah, I don't think they offer it anymore, but it was once a week, right?
Yes.
1 hour a week.
No, wait, yeah, it was, because when I wasn't in Asheville, we do virtual, I forgot.
Yeah. And so she did that for probably a year
No, probably 2 or 3 years actually.
before you also added tech vision.
Oh yeah, I did him and tech vision at the same time.
Yeah, so once she learned the basics, because like Campbell couldn't even turn on the computer when we first started. We had that meeting. And I think the district thought that if they got her a note taker, that's all that she would need. She didn't need to know JAWS and that kind of stuff. So once we convinced them that she did need to know JAWS, we contracted with Tech Vision. So she learned the basics with IFB solutions, like just checking your email, that kind of stuff, which she could do on her phone, but learning to do it with JAWS was different.
Yeah, and learning Microsoft Word and that kind of thing.
And maintenance on your computer,
Yeah,
that kind of stuff. So then, but the academic side of things, they didn't teach that, like how to present your math and how to cite sources on a paper and that kind of stuff. And I've never typed math a day in my life. I mean, when we were in school, I still learned to type on a typewriter. So, we had never done any math on a laptop. So learning that code was going to have to go to somebody else. And so we finally contracted, I think we had 8 or 10 IEP meetings before we got that approved in a year. And then we finally got them approved to fund that. And so then you started lessons with Tech Vision.
yeah.
And before she started those, she went through all of their video archives. I think they have like over 500 videos of lessons with other students. So she went through all the ones that made sense for you to go through.
Yeah, and I also went through all the Freedom Scientific videos as well.
All the tutorials and stuff to learn what she could before the paid lessons went into place, so to try to get a leg up. And so then she started working with them, and you were going into calculus, right?
No,
Pre-calculus. Yeah. So, I mean, I never even took pre-calculus, so I was no help mathematically or with the code that she had to be able to type. So she worked with them for how many years?
I mean, I think I got lessons from them for like maybe 2 years. Yeah, I think 2 years, because I worked with them my junior year, and then I actually ended up taking a second senior year so that I could get caught up on assistive technology during my junior year when I first started. And after that, I ended up actually working for them as a student intern after I'd learned enough. So that was probably just as much of a teacher as it was, taking the lessons myself.
And she also, so the district paid for so many a year. I don't remember how many it was.
They paid for 25
a year. That's it. She needed way more than that. So our family funded the rest of them. So we just paid for those privately. And then she got caught up, thank goodness, and then worked as an intern, because we were a little stressed because JAWS, man, when you first put it on your laptop and then try to do something. And when I first put it on, I had NVDA going at the same time. I couldn't figure out how to turn one of them off, and they were just both talking to me, and I was like,
yeah,
I'm never gonna be able to teach her to do this.
Yeah, and for anybody who knows, at that time NVDA had the awful e-speech voice that I cannot stand. Very metallic, and of course JAWS is going at the same time, so it was a perfect storm. I was ready to throw the computer in the fire at that point, but I didn't, and now I'm, I love tech. So
yeah, she was very resistant to JAWS at first, because it's hard. And the funny thing is, like when we started homeschooling, the district just gave me all of the stuff that they had for her. So all the Braille paper, the Braille writers, all of the everything that they had, I guess, in a storage place in the public school. And so I was just, okay. So I got it all, brought it here, started sorting through it, and there was a disc. It was back when JAWS was on an actual disc. They had JAWS, but they'd never used it. No one knew how to train her to use it. So they had purchased it, but it just sat there, and it still sat there because I didn't know how to train. I did put it on my laptop, but, obviously. And my laptop was too slow with it on there too.
yeah.
I didn't have an appropriate, I don't know, strength of a laptop to handle it.
And
So,
she had a Windows 8, which is not.
yeah,
not
that was
good.
a bad year. So, yeah, it was a journey, but thankfully most of it was funded by the school district. We did have to fund some things privately, but most of it was funded by the district. But we were so thankful that Tech Vision, because a lot of places are not willing to let you privately fund. So you kind of have to shop around, and they're virtual, so anybody can use them, all over the world.
Mhm.
So it was good.
Amazing. So I know this question is probably one of the most popular questions you both get is the socialization. What type of activities or things did you do during homeschool to support Campbell being experienced to different social settings and being as social as she is now?
Well, I don't think I intentionally looked for socialization. I know that I have homeschool friends who do intentionally plant social activities into their kids' lives because they feel like that's a priority, and then maybe it's lacking. I think especially people who have a lot of kids in one family, so their own circle is just their family, their social circle. So they want to branch out of that. We didn't really have to reach too far. So first we had different levels of friendships. So like people that we would just go on field trips with and things like that, that Campbell got along well with the kids, and I got along well with the moms, and we would just go do stuff. And then she also did summer camp every year from age 7 or 8.
Yeah, from age 7 till I graduated, I think.
Yeah. At the at local school for the blind, and it's not actually local, it's about 4 hours from us. So it's right in the center of the state, and we're in the far east. So she would go there, and the first few years it was just 1 week, and then it progressed to 2 weeks.
Right.
And then once we did 3 weeks, didn't you?
No, it was only every 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm thinking because you went to another camp.
Yeah.
So she had a huge friend circle from there that she would communicate with over the phone, texting and stuff throughout the year. And you're still good friends with those people.
Yeah, one of them actually called me on Thursday, and we talked for a while. So I still keep in touch with those people.
And then we also did piano. And she met a lot of people there that she's friends with, and her closest friends. And then
I also met some people just online,
virtually.
Yeah, I actually reconnected with a girl that I had met at the National Braille Challenge when I was 8. We reconnected when we were 15, and we're still good friends. And I have a friend, she was in Texas at the time when I met her virtually, that her family came and visited us recently. We've been friends for several years. So
and they're neat too, because they have sighted kids and blind kids in their family, and they have the same eye condition as Campbell. So my younger daughter is friends with their younger kids too. So that was a good match. And I met those people in parent groups. And so it was when our kids were learning technology. And so, they would be like, my kid's trying to learn how to text and use voiceover. Is there anybody that would text or email with my kid, back and forth? So we would just match them up based on age and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And interest.
Yeah. And then there was Club Vibes, which was a local club of blind people. And I made some good friends of all ages through there. And then through Tech Vision, I actually became I would consider myself good friends with some of the teachers I had, again, of all ages.
One of them's coming to visit us tomorrow.
Yeah.
She lives in Connecticut, and she's kind of flying in to chill with us this week, right?
Yeah. I think one of the biggest benefits of homeschooling is that you learn not to be afraid of people who are not the same age as you. Like my best friend is 3.5 years younger than me, and a lot of my friends are decades older than me, so they're friends / mentors, I guess I would say. But
Campbell doesn't go into teenager speaking to adult mode. I work with teenagers, so I get a lot of that, where they're filtering everything they say because they're talking to a grown-up. I think because, and Harris doesn't do it either. I think because they have just always been around people of all ages, and the adults are not always lecturing them like you are in a school setting. So there's not that barrier. She's never really had that barrier. So like she said, some of her best friends are in their 60s, 70s, and 80s, and have been for years.
Yeah.
So it's really cool to watch as a mom. And I get it that people see homeschoolers functioning that way and they think those kids are weird, because they do not act like my teenager who is got their face in the phone and saying yes and no questions only, So I think it's just a different type of socialization, and if it's weird, it's weird, but we embrace it.
Yeah,
I guess
it also means that you're not afraid of upperclassmen usually when you go to college. I noticed that some of my friends were afraid of the upperclassmen when I first got to college in the fall, and I was like, why? They're literally 2 and 3 years older than you. It really doesn't matter that much.
Yeah, they don't really have that pecking order here in school world. And then also Harris is the same way. Like when she's in theater and dance, her friends are like, Harris will ask the question because she's not scared. She'll ask, and then she'll just ask. She's like, it's not a big deal, just ask the grown-up.
Yeah. I've been in similar situations where I'll be in some sort of group and a bunch of the people my age are kind of complaining behind the adults' back because there's some problem that's not been resolved. And I'm like, come on, guys, just ask and it'll be resolved. And they're like, Campbell's the warrior. She's going to go ask. I literally ask and be cleared up in 5 minutes. It's kind of ridiculous, but
and I think it was a huge perk in the interview process because she had to do a lot of interviews for college, for admissions and scholarships. And just because you don't have those nerves, because I know whenever I was her age, I would have been mortified to do those interviews and so nervous.
Yeah. I mean, I was nervous, but just because I knew what was at stake, not because I was afraid of the people in particular.
Yeah, I think it's worked out well, and even like in my work, she would make friends with the grown-ups from an early age with the grown-ups that I worked with, because I'm a choreographer, so I would be doing something and the other directors are doing other things, so Campbell would hang out with them, and they're all still very close, and they were a big part of our homeschooling journey because they're all teachers and they were very great resources. So I think it's just been natural, like we just organically. I think sometimes, like we did try some homeschool co-ops here and there, and everybody was friendly, but you didn't really make any long-term friendships in any of those.
No.
So sometimes I think when you try to force it, and I'll see in homeschool groups that parents get really discouraged. So like, we're doing a homeschool co-op, but my kids don't seem to be making real connections. And sometimes when you try to force it, it just doesn't happen. It just needs to happen organically.
Yeah.
And that means you got to get out of the house. You can't just homeschool at home.
Yeah, I think we did more van school than homeschool, honestly.
Yeah. We were always excited if we had a day at home. We're like, we don't have anything to do tomorrow. We can stay home all day because it was so rare.